Hello. Before I tell you what happened at Pine Ridge Reservation, there's something I want you to know. If you ever visit the Badlands, those strange rock formations in the South Dakota prairies created by something ancient and wrong, and you hear a voice asking for help, run away as fast as you can without looking back. Remember, doing the opposite could cost you your life. This story may help those visiting the area recognize the signs before it's too late. So please share it, so we can inform everyone. Also, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss stories like this. Finally, if you've ever heard a strange whispering sound that you couldn't quite understand, don't forget to write about it in the comments. Some will dismiss the story I'm about to tell as a case of mental illness. But if you listen to the end, you'll see that this event is something even older than the Lakota people who have lived here for generations, and that it continues to hunt mercilessly. Now, I'll begin my story. My name is Victor Blackthorn. I'm 36 years old, enrolled member of the Oglala Lakota tribe, and I've been a police officer with the Pine Ridge Department of Public Safety for 8 years. Pine Ridge is the 8th largest reservation in the United States, roughly the size of Connecticut, and home to about 40,000 people living in some of the most isolated, impoverished conditions in the country. We have the highest rates of unemployment, alcoholism, and suicide in America. The nearest major city is over 100 miles away. When you patrol here, you're often the only law enforcement for 50 square miles. And when people disappear, they disappear completely. The Badlands form our northern border, a 70-meter stretch of eroded butte, deep canyons, and spire-like formations that glow red and gold at sunset. The Lakota call it Makosika, the Badlands. Not because the terrain is difficult, though it is. Not because it's dangerous to travel through, though that's also true. We call it that because something lives there, something that's always been there, something that waits. I didn't believe any of this when I started. I was fresh out of the Artesia Police Academy in New Mexico, eager to serve my community, convinced that science and law enforcement training could solve any problem. The old-timers tried to warn me, but I thought they were just being superstitious. Traditional beliefs were fine for ceremonies and cultural events, but real police work required evidence, procedure, facts. Then my wife disappeared. Her name was Nicole. Nicole Blackhorn was born on the Rosebud Reservation. Her name was Nicole Yellow Horse. We met at a powwow in Rapid City, married young, and built a life together in a small house outside Pine Ridge Village. We were a very beautiful family. Nicole worked as a social worker for the tribe, helping families understand the foster care system and advocating for children without anyone to care for them. She was the best person I knew, patient, compassionate, fiercely protective of everyone she loved. 2 years ago, on a Tuesday in March, Nicole drove to Wounded Knee to visit a family she'd been working with. It's only about 10 miles from Pine Ridge, a short drive on Highway 27. She should have been home by 7 all A. At 9, I started calling. At 10, I called dispatch. At midnight, I was driving the highway with my spotlight, looking for any sign of her vehicle. We found her car at 3:03 in the morning, pulled off on a dirt road that leads toward the Badlands. The driver's door was open. The engine was cold. Her purse, phone, and jacket were still inside. There were footprints in the dirt leading away from the car heading north toward the formations. And then about 50 yards from the vehicle, the footprints just stopped. Not faded or blown away. They just ended as if Nicole had stepped into the air and vanished. Search and rescue teams came from 3 counties. Dogs, helicopters, volunteers, hundreds of people combing the Badlands for any trace of her. We found nothing. No body, no clothing, no sign of where she'd gone or what had happened. Her phone showed one unsent text message typed but never delivered. Someone standing in the road. He's so tall. That was 2 years ago. The case is still open, but everyone except me has accepted she's dead. Exposure in the Badlands in March, freezing nights, no water, disorienting terrain would kill someone in days. But I can't accept it because Nicole knew better than to follow anyone into the Badlands. She grew up with the same warnings I ignored. She knew the rules. A week after Nicole went missing, my training officer, Ray Conroy, took me to a quiet place. Ray was 58 years old, a member of the Lakota tribe, and had served on tribal police for over 30 years. He had battled alcoholism, gang violence in the nines, and more trauma than anyone could bear. He was also the only officer who never stopped treating Nicole's disappearance as an active investigation. "I need to show you something," he said. "Something I should have shown you before your wife went missing." I thought, he paused, choosing words carefully. I thought if I didn't talk about it, maybe it wouldn't be real. But that was stupid and selfish, and it might have cost Nicole her life. He drove me to his house on the eastern edge of the reservation near the Badlands, overlook where tourists stopped to take photographs of the formations stretching endlessly toward the horizon. Inside, he pulled out a battered notebook, its cover worn soft from decades of handling. "Every officer who works this reservation long enough starts keeping one of these," Ray said, opening to the first page. "Unofficial log of cases that don't make sense, deaths that don't fit patterns, disappearances where the evidence just stops like someone edited them out of reality." The notebook contained dozens of entries dating back to 1987. I was shocked when I saw it. Names, dates, circumstances of the events. Over 32 years, 23 people had disappeared, all in similar ways. Abandoned cars near the Badlands, footprints that abruptly ended, unsent text messages or last words about seeing a tall figure. Sometimes bodies were found, but always with the same details. Eyes open, staring at something. A frozen expression of horror and bewilderment on their faces. I shuddered. "What is this?" I asked. "Pattern. That's what you need to look for as a cop." Ray flipped through the pages filled with cramped handwriting. I started noticing this in the early 90s when these disappearances and suicides started happening more frequently. Youth suicides were on the rise. 8 kids in 6 months. We brought in counselors and support groups held community meetings. But the suicides continued, and they all had something in common. The kids were withdrawing, saying they heard voices or whispers they couldn't understand. They started walking off on their own, just walking, usually at night, usually towards the Badlands. Some were stopped, some weren't. The bodies of those who reached the side formations were found days later. He turned to a specific page marked with a torn piece of paper. 5 photographs were taped there. Teenagers, school pictures, smiling faces that looked like any kids you'd see anywhere. Except these kids were dead. 2009. Worst cluster I've ever seen. 5 in 2 months. All reported the same thing before they died. Hearing whispers in Lakota, a language some of them didn't even speak. All described seeing a figure on the reservation roads late at night. Extremely tall, walking but not quite touching the ground. All of them said the figure was calling their names. Ray, this sounds like mass hysteria, copycat suicides. I know how it sounds. That's what the Bureau of Indian Affairs said. That's what the FBI said when they investigated. They brought in psychologists, anthropologists, everyone except someone who'd actually listened to what the kids were saying before they died. He closed the notebook, but I listened and I started noticing that it wasn't just kids, adults too. Anyone dealing with serious trauma or grief, anyone vulnerable, that's when the whispers start. And once you hear them, you got maybe 48 hours. 48 hours until what? Until you follow them. Until you find yourself walking toward the Badlands without consciously deciding to go there. Until you end up like these kids, or like your wife, or like the 23 other people in this notebook, whose cases will never be solved, because what took them isn't something you can arrest. I wanted to dismiss it. Wanted to believe Ray was traumatized, seeing patterns where none existed, succumbing to the same superstitions I'd rejected. But I couldn't ignore the evidence he'd compiled. The consistency across decades of cases, the fact that Nicole's disappearance matched the pattern exactly. "What is it?" I asked. "This thing that's taking people." Ray was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, His voice was barely above a whisper. The elders have different names for it. Most common is Walking Sam, though that's recent. From a text message one of the kids sent before she died in 2015, she said, "Walking with Sam toward the lights." Her name was Samantha, so everyone assumed she was referring to herself, but there was no one named Sam on the reservation who knew her. The name stuck anyway. And before that, what did the elders call it? The tall man, the whisperer, the one who leads away. The names change, but the description's always the same. Something extremely tall, maybe 7 or 8 feet, that appears on roads and in mirrors and at the edges of vision. It whispers in voices that sound like people you know, calling you, telling you to come, to follow, to walk toward the Badlands, where it can finish whatever it starts. Ray opened a desk drawer and pulled out a laminated card, similar to the cards we carried with traffic codes and radio protocols. But this card contains 7 rules, handwritten in precise block letters. Rule 1. Never respond if you hear your name called from the Badlands after dark. It's not who you think it is. Rule 2. If you see a figure over 7 feet tall on reservation roads, do not stop your vehicle. Do not make eye contact. Do not acknowledge its presence. Rule 3. Missing persons cases wear footprints and abruptly. Do not investigate alone. Always have backup. Always leave before dark. Rule 4. If a suicide victim's eyes are open, close them immediately before family members see. What they were looking at should not be witnessed by the living. Rule 5. The tall man appears in mirrors before he appears in person. If you see something behind you in the reflection that isn't there when you turn around, leave the area immediately. Rule 6. If someone reports hearing whispers in Lakota they don't understand, they have approximately 48 hours. Get them to a medicine man. Do not wait. Rule 7. Never follow someone into the Badlands if they're walking toward the sunrise. They're already gone. You'll only make yourself the next target. Every officer who's worked this reservation long enough gets one of these. Fry said, "We don't talk about them officially. They're not in any training manual, but we pass them around quietly. Make sure the new officers get them. Hope they take them seriously. I should have given you this on your first day. I didn't. And Nicole paid the price. This isn't your fault, isn't it? I knew the pattern. I knew what the warning signs looked like. Did Nicole mention hearing voices in the weeks before she disappeared? Did she seem distracted, like she was listening to something you couldn't hear? I thought back to March, to the weeks leading up to her disappearance. Nicole had been stressed. The job was demanding. The case is heartbreaking. The poverty and dysfunction sometimes overwhelming. But there had been something else. She'd seemed distant, would sometimes stop mid-conversation as if listening to something. When I asked, she'd say it was nothing. Just tired, just work. Yes, I admitted she did. And did you see anything unusual? Figure in your rearview mirror that wasn't there when you checked again. Shadows that moved wrong? I don't know. Maybe. I wasn't looking for it. None of us are until it's too late. Ray handed me the laminated card. Take this. Memorize it. And Vincent, be careful. The tall man targets people with grief and trauma. People who've lost someone they loved. People who blame themselves. People who are vulnerable to whispers that tell them they could see their loved ones again if they just follow. Just walk a little farther. Just come to where the voices are calling from. He met my eyes. You're exactly the kind of person he hunts. I took the card and left, still not entirely convinced, but unable to shake the growing certainty that Ray was right, that something was hunting on the reservation, that it had taken Nicole, and that I might be next. That was 6 months ago. Since then, I've been investigating unofficially, adding to Ray's notebook, looking for patterns, and I found them. The disappearances follow cycles, quiet periods of months or even years, then sudden clusters, like something that feeds and then digests, dormant and then ravenous. We're in a cluster period now. 3 months ago, the disappearances started again. 6 teenagers from Red Cloud High School, all between 15 and 17, all reported hearing whispers. all last seen walking toward the Badlands. 4 bodies recovered, eyes open, expressions frozen. 2 never found. The tribal council brought in counselors again, grief specialists, suicide prevention experts. They've held community meetings, increased patrols, instituted a buddy system so no kid walks anywhere alone after dark. None of it has helped, because this isn't a suicide cluster. It's a hunting season. And I think I know why it started again. I think I know what woke it up after a quiet period, because 3 months ago I did something I'd been warned never to do. I broke Rule 3. It was a missing person case. 16-year-old boy named Jordan Left Hand reported missing by his grandmother when he didn't come home from basketball practice. Last seen walking north on BIA Route 27, heading toward the Badlands. I responded alone because we were short-staffed, and I was the only officer available. I found his backpack about 2 miles into the formations, sitting on a flat rock like someone had carefully placed it there. His phone was inside, battery dead, and next to the backpack was something else. A message spelled out in small stones. He's still walking. Follow if you want to find him. I should have left, should have called for backup. Waited for daylight. Followed protocol. But I thought about Nicole. About how I'd been too late to save her. About how this boy might still be alive if I just went a little farther. So I followed. The formations in the Badlands are disorienting, eroded spires and narrow canyons that all look the same, creating a natural maze where even experienced hikers get lost. I marked my path, left cannons every 100 yards, kept my radio on. The sun was setting, casting long shadows that moved in ways that made my skin crawl. I found Jordan Tumilly and sitting on the ground with his back against a formation. Staring at the horizon, he was alive, breathing, but completely unresponsive, eyes wide open, looking at something I couldn't see. Jordan. I knelt beside him. Can you hear me? I'm Officer Blackhorn. I'm here to take you home. He didn't blink, didn't move, just stared. I checked his vitals, heart rate elevated, breathing shallow, pupils dilated, some kind of shock or dissociative state. I radioed for medical evacuation, then tried to get him to his feet. That's when he finally reacted. His hand shot out, gripping my wrist with surprising strength, and he turned to look at me. His eyes focused. But something was wrong with them. They were Jordan's eyes, but behind them, something else was looking out. He says you've been listening. Jordan spoke in a flat monotone. He says you hear the whispers now. He says you've been hearing them for weeks, but pretending you don't. He says it's time to stop pretending. Time to follow. Time to walk. Who says this? Who are you talking about? Jordan smiled. A terrible expression that didn't match his face, like watching a puppet's strings being pulled. The tall man. He's been waiting for you ever since she came to him. Ever since he took her. He's been waiting for you to grieve long enough, hurt deep enough. And now you're ready. A sound came from behind me. Footsteps on gravel, slow and measured. I turned, hand moving instinctively toward my weapon. The sun had just dropped below the horizon, and in the purple twilight, I saw it. A figure, impossibly tall, standing at the entrance to the canyon about 50 yards away. It was shaped like a man, but wrong in every proportion. Legs too long, arms hanging past the knees, head elongated, and it was watching me with eyes that caught the last rays of sunlight and reflected them back like an animal's. Hey, I've been a cop for 8 years. I faced armed suspects, domestic violence calls where everyone was violent, gang members who'd killed people over disrespect. I'd never been truly afraid. The kind of fear that freezes your blood and makes your lizard brain scream to run. Until that moment, the figure didn't move. It just stood there perfectly still. And I knew with absolute certainty that it was the thing Ray had warned me about. The thing that had taken Nicole. The thing that had been hunting on this reservation for longer than anyone could remember. And it was smiling. Jordan's voice came from behind me, still in that flat monotone. He says it's time. He says you've been marked. He says you'll come to him eventually. They all do. But he's patient. He can wait. The medical helicopter arrived 20 minutes later. They airlifted Jordan to the hospital in Rapid City, where doctors found nothing physically wrong with him beyond dehydration and mild hypothermia. His mental state was another matter. He remained catatonic for 3 days, then woke up with no memory of walking into the Badlands or what he'd seen there. But his grandmother told me something the doctors didn't know. Jordan's eyes had been closed when they found him in the helicopter. The EMTs confirmed it. They'd closed them during transport, standard procedure. But when he woke up in the hospital 3 days later, his eyes were open and he was staring at something no one else could see. That was 3 months ago. Since then, I've been hearing the whispers. The whispers started 2 weeks after I found Jordan in the Badlands. At first I thought it was tinnitus, a high-pitched ringing in my ears that came and went worse at night, especially when I was alone. But then I started noticing patterns. The sound would intensify when I drove past certain areas of the reservation, particularly near the Badlands boundary. It would spike when I was investigating missing person cases or suicide calls. And sometimes if I focused on it instead of trying to ignore it, I could almost make out words. Words in Lakota, a language I understood but had never been fluent in. Come here, come now. I didn't tell anyone at first. Ry had retired the month before, took his pension, and moved to Rapid City to be closer to his daughter, though he called me once a week to check in. The new senior officer was a transplant from Minnesota, white, competent, but completely uninterested in what he called local folklore. The other officers were overworked and understaffed, dealing with the regular chaos of policing a reservation with inadequate resources. So, I kept the whispers to myself and tried to function normally. Took my shifts, responded to calls, wrote reports. But I was sleeping less, eating less, becoming increasingly paranoid that people could somehow tell I was hearing things. And then I started seeing it in mirrors. The first time was 3 weeks after the whispers began. I was brushing my teeth before bed, exhausted after a double shift, when I noticed something in the bathroom mirror. Behind my reflection in the darkened hallway, a figure was standing, extremely tall, perfectly still, watching. I spun around. The hallway was empty. When I turned back to the mirror, the figure was gone. I convinced myself it was exhaustion, my mind playing tricks, stress manifesting as hallucinations. I'd seen it happen to other cops. The job wore you down, especially here where the trauma was constant and the resources minimal. I just needed sleep, needed to take better care of myself, needed to maybe talk to someone about the anniversary of Nicole's disappearance approaching. But it kept happening. In my patrol car's rearview mirror, I'd catch glimpses of something in the back seat. In store windows as I walked past, I'd see a tall figure standing just behind me. In the black screen of my phone when it was off, a reflection that shouldn't be there. Always tall, always watching, always gone when I looked directly at where it should be. Rule 5 kept playing in my mind. The tall man appears in mirrors before he appears in person. If you see something behind you in the reflection that isn't there when you turn around, leave the area immediately. But I couldn't leave. This was my home, my job, my life. Where was I supposed to go? And more importantly, what about the people who needed help? The missing persons cases that kept coming in. The families who called dispatch, begging for someone to find their loved ones before it was too late. 6 weeks after finding Jordan, we got another case. 17-year-old girl named Autumn White Plume, honors student, basketball player, planning to attend college in the fall. Her mother called it in around 9:00 p.m. Autumn had gone for a walk after dinner and hadn't returned. Last seen heading toward the old POW grounds on the northern edge of the village. I responded with Officer Jennifer Catches, a rookie who'd been with the department for 8 months. We found Autumn's jacket near the powwow grounds, carefully folded and placed on the judge's table like someone had set it there deliberately. Her phone was in the pocket, still on, showing a series of text messages to her best friend. 8:47 p.m. Walking, can't stop, something pulling me. 8:52 p.m. Hearing things, voices, sound like my dad. 8:56 p.m. I see him. He's so tall. Why is he smiling? 9:31 p.m. I'm sorry, Mom. Tell everyone I'm sorry. Mom. Tell everyone I'm sorry. Mom. Tell everyone I'm sorry. Her father had died 2 years ago. Diabetes complications common on the reservation where healthcare was inadequate, and traditional diets had been destroyed by commodity foods. Autumn had taken it hard, blamed herself for not recognizing the signs earlier, spent months in counseling. Grief, trauma, guilt, exactly the profile Rye had described. She's heading for the Badlands. I told Jennifer we need to organize a search party. Get as many people as possible before what? Jennifer was young, 24, still believed the following protocol and working hard would solve problems before she hurts herself. Then we should go now, not waste time organizing. It's almost dark. Rule 3 says, I don't care about the rules in some unofficial notebook that gets passed around like a ghost story. Her tone was sharp, frightened. That's a 17-year-old girl out there. We're going after her. She was right in a way. We were cops. Our job is protecting people, not following superstitious guidelines written by traumatized officers. But I'd seen what happened to Jordan. I'd seen the figure standing in the canyon, impossibly tall, waiting with patience that felt older than the formations themselves. Jennifer, listen to me. This isn't a normal missing person case. There's something, Vincent. I know you've been through hell with your wife. I know these cases hit you harder because of what happened, but we can't let fear stop us from doing our job. Autumn's out there. She's scared and we're going to find her. Are you coming or not? I thought about Rule 3. I thought about what Ray had said about the tall man targeting people with grief and trauma. I thought about the whispers that had been growing louder in my head for weeks. The figure I kept seeing in reflections. The way I sometimes found myself staring at the Badlands horizon without remembering when I'd started. And I thought about Nicole, about how I'd failed to save her, about the text message on her phone that no one but me seemed to think was important. Someone standing in the road. He's so tall. I'm coming, I said. But we take radios, we stay together, and we leave before full dark. No exceptions. We tracked Autumn's footprints north from the Powwow grounds, following the same path dozens of missing persons had taken over the decades. The prints were clear in the dust, running shoes, moving fast, heading straight toward the formations. About a mile out, the stride length changed. She'd slowed down, started walking instead of running. And then, just like Nicole's prints, just like all the others, they ended. No fade, no scuff marks indicating she'd been picked up or struggled. The prints just stopped in the middle of a flat stretch of ground as if Autumn had stepped into another dimension. This doesn't make sense, Jennifer said, kneeling to examine the last footprint. People don't just disappear. There has to be an explanation. Wind covering the tracks, hard ground that doesn't show prints, something. But there was nothing. The ground beyond the last print was soft dirt, perfect for showing tracks. There was no wind, and we both knew what this meant, even if Jennifer wasn't ready to accept it. We need to leave, I said, checking my watch. The sun was touching the horizon now. Not without Autumn. Jennifer, it's Rule 3. Missing persons cases where footprints end abruptly, we don't investigate alone after dark. We're coming back with a full team at first light. You ought to leave that girl out here overnight in March in the Badlands, where temperatures drop below freezing. She'll die of exposure. She's already gone. The prints ending like this. It means nothing, except for looking at weird terrain. I'm not abandoning a search because of superstitious. Jennifer stood and started walking into the formations, following the direction Autumn's prints had been heading. You can leave if you want. I'm finding that girl. I should have grabbed her, physically stopped her, called for backup, and waited. But something in me, the part that had been hearing whispers for weeks, the part that saw the tall man in every reflection, wanted to follow, wanted to see what was in there, wanted to understand what had taken Nicole. so I followed Jennifer into the Badlands as the sun set. The formations were even more disorienting. At twilight, the red rock turned purple and black, creating shadows that seemed to move independently of any light source. The narrow canyons amplified every sound: our footsteps, our breathing, the whisper of wind through stone corridors. And underneath all of it, I heard the whispers, louder now, clearer. Kua, Vincent, Hal, whoa, Nicole is waiting. Nicole wants to see you. Just a little farther. Just around the next turn. Do you hear that? Jennifer had stopped, head tilted. Sounds like voices. We need to leave right now. No, listen. It sounds like her eyes went wide. That's my brother. That's Danny's voice. But he's in Sioux Falls. He can't be here. Why would he? It's not your brother, Jennifer. Whatever you're hearing, it's not real. We need to go back. But she was already walking, following the voice only she could hear, moving deeper into the maze of the formations. I grabbed her arm. She pulled away with surprising strength, her eyes unfocused, staring at something I couldn't see. He needs help. He's calling for me. I have to. A sound echoed through the canyon. Footsteps. Slow, measured, impossibly heavy, coming from somewhere ahead of us. And with the footsteps, a smell like old paper and dried flowers, and something underneath that made my henbei brain scream. Danger. Jennifer stopped walking. The unfocused look left her eyes replaced by pure terror. Vincent, she whispered. What is that? The figure emerged from around a formation about 30 yards ahead. Impossibly tall, at least 7 feet, maybe more. Its proportions were wrong, legs too long, arms hanging past its knees. In the dying light, I couldn't make out its face clearly, but I saw enough. Skin that looked like old leather. Eyes that reflected what little light remained, and a smile. A terrible knowing smile that suggested it had been waiting for us. Jennifer screamed. Not a human sound, a primal shriek of recognition. Like her DNA remembered this thing, even if her conscious mind didn't. She turned and ran, not back the way we'd come, but deeper into the formations, following instinct that was leading her exactly where the thing wanted her to go. Jennifer, stop. I ran after her, but she was faster, driven by panic. I lost sight of her around a bend, heard her footsteps echoing off stone walls, then silence. I found her 2 minutes later, sitting on the ground with her back against a formation, completely still. Her eyes were open, staring at the horizon where the last light was fading. She was breathing but unresponsive, exactly like Jordan had been. The footsteps came again, closer now. I pulled my weapon, trained it on the corridor where the sound originated. My hands were shaking. The whispers in my head had become a roar. Your wife is here, Vincent. We kept her for you. Don't you want to see her? Don't you want to know what happened? Just come a little closer. Just follow us home. The figure appeared, stepping into view with movements that seemed to skip frames, like watching stop-motion animation. It was close enough now that I could see details. The skin that looked like parchment. The fingers that were too long with too many joints. The face that was almost human but stretched, distorted, wrong in ways that made my eyes hurt to process. And the eyes black like looking into wells that had no bottom, reflecting nothing, absorbing all light. It spoke, not with a mouth. I don't think its mouth moved, but I heard the voice inside my skull bypassing my ears entirely. Victor Blackthorne, you've been listening well. You hear us now clearly. You're almost ready. Ready for what? My voice cracked. The gun felt useless in my hands. To walk, to follow, to come home where all the broken things go. Where grief ends and forgetting begins. Your wife understands now. She stopped fighting. She walks with us in the places between, and she's been calling for you. Haven't you heard her voice in the whispers? Haven't you recognized her in the sounds you try to ignore? Nicole is dead. Dead is such a limited concept. She's transformed, collected, kept, and she's waiting for you to join her. All you have to do is walk. Just follow us into the deep places where the light doesn't reach and you'll understand everything. Behind me, Jennifer made a soft sound, a whimper or maybe a laugh. I didn't turn to look. What are you? I asked. Old, patient, necessary. We've walked these lands since before your people came, since before the stones rose, since the earth was younger and the boundaries between worlds were thinner. We collect the broken ones, the grieving ones, the ones whose pain calls to us like beacons in the dark. We give them peace. We give them forgetting. We give them passage to places where suffering ends. You're killing people. You're hunting them. We're harvesting them. Like autumn leaves that have turned, like fruit that's ripened. Their time has come, their pain has peaked. We gather them before they hurt themselves, before they hurt others, before their suffering becomes a poison that spreads. We are mercy, Vincent. We are inevitability. We are the end that comes for everyone, just arriving early for those who need it most. The thing took a step closer. I raised the gun. You can shoot. It won't stop us. Nothing stops us. We've been shot, stabbed, burned, buried. We always return. We always continue the harvest. Your wife knew this. She fought at first. They all do. But then she understood. She walked with us willingly into the places where pain ends. And soon you'll understand, too. My radio crackled. Dispatch. Asking for a status update. I'd missed our check-in time. The sound seemed to break whatever spell had frozen me. I grabbed Jennifer, pulled her to her feet, and ran. She was dead weight, unresponsive, but adrenaline gave me strength I didn't know I had. I dragged her back through the formations, ignoring the whispers that had become screams, ignoring the footsteps that followed at a measured pace, never rushing, never slowing, patient as stone. We made it to the patrol car as full darkness fell. I loaded Jennifer into the passenger seat, radioed for medical assistance, and drove toward the village with my lights and siren on. In the rearview mirror, I saw a figure standing on the road behind us, impossibly tall, watching us leave. It raised one long arm in a gesture that might have been a wave or a promise. Jennifer was hospitalized in Rapid City, same as Jordan had been. The doctors found nothing physically wrong. Vitals normal, no injuries, no signs of drug use. But she remained catatonic for 5 days. When she woke up, she had no memory of following the voice into the Badlands or what she'd seen there. But she never came back to work. She resigned 2 weeks after being released, moved back to Minnesota, and according to mutual friends, refuses to talk about what happened that night. The official report said she'd experienced a dissociative episode brought on by stress and exhaustion. Only I knew the truth. Only I had seen what was really in those formations, heard what it had said, understood that it was marking people for collection. And I knew I was marked too. Because since that night, the whispers have become constant. I hear them when I'm alone, when I'm in crowds, when I'm trying to sleep. They follow me everywhere, always in Lakota, always saying the same things. Your time is coming. Your pain is ready for harvest. Nicole is waiting. Just walk toward us. Just follow the voices home. And worst of all, I'm starting to recognize the voice. It sounds like Nicole, not mimicking her. It is her speaking in the same tone, the same inflections, the same way she used to call my name when she got home from work. I found her body 3 weeks ago. I wasn't supposed to be searching that area. The official search perimeter for Nicole had been established 2 years ago, covering a 5-meter radius from where her car was found. Every inch had been combed multiple times by professionals with dogs, thermal imaging, ground-penetrating radar. The conclusion was unanimous. If she'd died from exposure in the Badlands, her body would have been found, but I kept searching anyway. Unofficial searches, off-duty. Sometimes at night when I couldn't sleep and the whispers got too loud. I told myself I was looking for closure, for proof she was really gone, for some way to move forward. But the truth was darker than that. I was hoping to find her alive, even after 2 years, even knowing the statistics on survival in that terrain, even after seeing what the tall man had done to Jordan and Jennifer and all the others. Some broken part of me kept hoping that maybe Nicole had just gotten lost, found shelter somewhere, survived on rainwater and whatever she could forage. It was impossible. Illogical. The desperate fantasy of a man who couldn't accept reality until the night I found the cave. It was late April, 3 weeks after the incident with Jennifer. I'd been hiking the formation since sunset, following a route I'd walked dozens of times before. The whispers were worse than usual. A constant sorceress of voices speaking Lot, English, languages I didn't recognize. They'd been building for days, growing louder, more insistent, and I'd stopped biting them. I just let them wash over me while I searched. This way, Vincent, closer now. Almost there. Just a little farther. Turn left at the split rock. Follow the canyon down. We're waiting. She's waiting. I should have turned back. Should have recognized I was being led, guided toward something I wasn't meant to find. But the whispers sounded so much like Nicole now. And I was so tired of fighting. The cave entrance was small, barely 3 feet high, hidden behind a formation that looked identical to 100 others. I would have walked past it if the whispers hadn't suddenly stopped, leaving a silence so absolute it felt like pressure on my eardrums. I shined my flashlight into the opening. The beam illuminated a descending passage that opened into a larger chamber about 20 feet in. The walls were smooth, worn by water that must have flowed through here millions of years ago, and on those walls covering every available surface were markings, not petroglyphs. These were recent, carved with something sharp, crude letters spelling words in English and Lakota. The same phrases repeated hundreds of times. He calls. We walk no pain here. The tall man knows. Follow the whispers home. I descended into the chamber, my training screaming at me to stop, to call for backup, to follow literally any protocol for cave exploration. But something was pulling me forward. Not the whispers, which were still silent, but a certainty deep in my bones that whatever I'd been searching for was here. The chamber opened into a network of passages. I marked my path with reflective tape, checking behind me constantly to ensure I could find my way back. The markings on the walls continued, becoming more frantic, more desperate. Mixed with the words were drawings. Stick figures walking in lines, a tall figure standing at the front, leading them somewhere. The air smelled wrong. Not the clean mineral smell of normal caves, but something organic. Decay. Old flowers. That same smell I'd encountered when the tall man had appeared in the canyon. I found the first body in the third chamber. It was a man I didn't recognize, maybe 50 years old, wearing clothes that looked decades out of date. He was sitting against the wall, legs crossed, hands folded in his lap. His eyes were open, staring at something I couldn't see. The flesh had mummified in the dry cave air, skin pulled tight over bones, mouth open in an expression that could have been terror or ecstasy. The second body was in the passage beyond, a teenage girl positioned the same way, eyes open, hands folded, perfect preservation. The third, fourth, fifth, all sitting, all staring, all arranged with care. By the time I found the seventh body, I'd stopped counting. This wasn't a mass grave. It was a collection, a gallery of trophies or offerings, or something my mind couldn't fully process. And then I found Nicole. She was in the deepest chamber, past all the others, positioned against the far wall. Her eyes were open. Her hands were folded. Her expression was peaceful, almost serene. She'd been dead for 2 years, but the cave air had preserved her perfectly. She looked like she could wake up at any moment. I dropped to my knees beside her, a sound tearing from my throat that was half sob, half scream. 2 years of searching, of hoping, of denying reality, and here she was, arranged like a doll. One more trophy in whatever collection the tall man was building. I reached out to touch her face. Her eyes moved. Not much, just a slight shift, pupils tracking left to find me. Her mouth didn't move. Her chest didn't rise with breath, but her eyes found mine. And I saw recognition in them and horror. Nicole, my voice broke. Her lips didn't part, but I heard her voice, not out loud. Inside my head, the same way I'd heard the tall man speak. Vincent. Oh God. Vincent, you found me. You shouldn't have found me. You shouldn't have found me. You need to leave right now. What did he do to you? How are you? I'm not alive, not dead. Something in between. He keeps us here in the thin places, aware but unable to move. Unable to speak except in whispers. We are his anchors, his beacons, the broken ones he's collected. Kept in this place between worlds to call others, to guide them here. I don't understand the whispers you've been hearing. They're us. All of us. He's collected over the years. We don't want to do it. We don't want to lure others. But he makes us. He uses our voices, our memories, our love for the people we left behind. He turns our grief into his hunting call. I looked at the other bodies, all eyes open, all staring. And now that Nicole had spoken, I could hear them too. A chorus of voices in my mind overlapping, pleading. Let us go, please. It hurts to be this way. Tell my family I'm sorry. Make it stop. Please make it stop. He's coming. He knows you're here. How do I free you? How do I stop this? You can't. Once he collects us, we're his forever. The only thing you can do is leave, Vincent. Leave and don't come back. Don't listen to the whispers anymore. Don't look for me in mirrors. Don't follow the voices into the Badlands. Leave. I'm not leaving you here. I'm already gone. This isn't life, Vincent. This is worse than death. This is being trapped in your worst moment forever. Aware but powerless, used as bait to hurt people you love. Don't you understand? The reason the whispers sound like me is because they are me. He's been using my voice to call you here for 2 years, and if you don't leave right now, he'll add you to the collection. And then we'll both be calling others forever. Footsteps echoed from somewhere deeper in the cave system. Slow, measured, patient. Nicole's eyes widened in terror. Go, please, Vincent, for both of us. Go. I stumbled backward. Away from her. Away from the bodies, back toward the marked passage that led to the surface. The footsteps followed, never rushing, never slowing. And behind me I heard all the voices of the collected speaking in unison. Run, Vincent, he's here. The tall man is here. Run, I ran. The passage seemed longer than before. The markings I'd left harder to see. The voices followed me, some urging me forward, others calling me back. I couldn't tell which were trying to help and which were trying to trap me. I emerged from the cave entrance as dawn was breaking, throwing myself into the morning light, gasping for air. Behind me, in the darkness of the entrance, I saw movement. Something tall, something patient, something that knew I'd be back eventually. Because once you'd seen the collection, once you'd heard their voices, once you understood what was waiting, you couldn't stop yourself from returning. I called it in, sent the coordinates to dispatch, requested a full investigative team, told them I'd found Nicole's body and possibly multiple others. The response was massive. County sheriff, FBI, tribal police, everyone. They spent 3 days searching that cave system. They found nothing. No bodies, no markings on the walls. No evidence that anyone had been there except for my reflective tape markings and footprints. The cave I described existed. They found it using my coordinates, but it was empty, clean, untouched. The FBI agent in charge, a woman named Sandra Martinez, who'd worked dozens of cases on reservations across the country, pulled me aside on the 3rd day. Officer Blackhorn, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Have you been experiencing any hallucinations? Hearing voices, seeing things that aren't there? You think I made this up? I think you're a man who's been under extreme stress for 2 years. You lost your wife under traumatic circumstances. You've been investigating similar cases that hit too close to home. You're not sleeping, probably not eating well. The mind can create very convincing experiences when pushed to its limits. I found her body. I saw at least 7 other bodies. They were real. Were they? Because we've been through that cave 3 times with dogs, with thermal imaging. with forensic teams trained to find buried remains. There's nothing there, Vincent. No bodies, no evidence of bodies, no chemical traces, no disturbed soil, nothing. Then where did they go? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Did you actually see bodies, or did your mind, desperate for closure, create an experience that felt real in the moment? I wanted to argue, wanted to show her the scratches on my hands from the cave walls, the dirt on my clothes, the photographs I'd tried to take on my phone that showed only darkness and strange light artifacts. But I knew how it looked. Traumatized cop, grief-stricken, investigating cases that triggered his own loss, finally snapping under the pressure. I need you to take some time off, Martinez said gently. See a counselor. Get some rest. And Vincent, stay away from the Badlands. Whatever you're looking for out there, it's not helping you heal. They put me on administrative leave. Mandatory counseling. Psychological evaluation before I could return to duty. The department was kind about it. They'd seen officers break before, understood the toll this job took, especially here where the poverty and dysfunction were overwhelming, and the support was minimal. I went through the motions, attended the counseling sessions, took the medications they prescribed, told the psychologist what she needed to hear, that I understood I'd experienced a stress-induced breakdown, that the bodies in the cave had been hallucinations, that I was processing my grief in unhealthy ways. But I knew the truth. I'd found Nicole. I'd seen the collection. I'd heard their voices, felt their desperation, understood finally what the tall man was doing with the people he took. And I knew something else, something worse than finding her body had been. I was still hearing the whispers, and they were getting louder. The medication didn't stop them. The counseling didn't help. Every night when I tried to sleep, I heard Nicole's voice calling from somewhere beyond the walls of my house, beyond the boundaries of the reservation, from those thin places where the collected waited. Come back, Vincent. Come find me. Come join us. It's not so bad once you stop biting. The pain ends. The guilt ends. Everything ends except the waiting. Come back. Come home. I started seeing it in mirrors again. The tall man standing behind me closer than before, in the rearview mirror of my truck, sitting in the back seat, watching in store windows and phone screens and any reflective surface, always watching, always patient. And I started walking, not consciously at first. I'd lose time. Hours where I couldn't remember what I'd done or where I'd been. I'd come back to awareness standing at the edge of the Badlands, facing the formations with no memory of getting there. My feet would ache. My clothes would be dirty, and the whispers would be loudest at those moments. A chorus of voices all saying the same thing. Keep walking just a little farther. We're waiting. We're all waiting. I tried everything. Talked to medicine men who performed cleansing ceremonies, wore protective charms, avoided mirrors, set alarms on my phone to check where I was every hour. None of it helped, because the truth Rye had tried to warn me about was becoming undeniable. Once the tall man marked you, once you heard the whispers clearly, once you were identified as broken and grieving and ready for collection, it was only a matter of time. The question wasn't if he'd come for me. It was when, and whether I'd fight it, or, like Nicole, eventually stop fighting and walk willingly into whatever waited in those thin places between worlds. 2 months after finding the cave, I was cleared to return to duty. The department was short-staffed. Jordan, Left Hand's younger brother, had gone missing. Another teen suicide cluster had started, and they needed every officer available. The psych evaluation said I was stable. The counselor signed off, and my administrative leave ended. My first day back, we got a call. Missing person, 14-year-old boy named Marcus Running Bear. Last seen walking toward the Badlands at sunset. His mother said he'd been withdrawn for weeks, hearing voices, talking about a tall man who visited him in dreams. I took the call against protocol, against every warning Ray had given me, against the rules I'd memorized and tried to follow, because I'd realized something during those 2 months of administrative leave, those nights of lost time and walking toward the formations without meaning to. Those moments of seeing the tall man getting closer in every reflection. I was already marked, already collected, just waiting for the final moment when I'd walk into the Badlands and not come back. So if I was going anyway, if my fate was already decided, maybe I could do something useful with the time I had left. Maybe I could find where the tall man took them, find the place where the boundaries were thinnest, find the collection and somehow set them free or die trying. Either way, the waiting would finally be over. Marcus Running Bear's footprints ended exactly where I expected them to, at the same formation where Nicole's had stopped 2 years earlier, the same spot where dozens of others had vanished, the same place I'd avoided during every search because some part of me knew what was there even before I'd found the cave. I stood at the edge of that boundary, staring at the last footprint, and made my decision. I crossed over. The moment I stepped past where Marcus's prints ended, the world changed. Not dramatically. No flash of light or sudden darkness, just a subtle shift, like the air pressure had dropped or the quality of light had altered. The whispers, which had been a constant background noise for months, suddenly stopped. The silence was absolute, terrifying. I walked forward into the formations, following an instinct I couldn't name. The stone walls seemed to pulse like they were breathing. The shadows moved independently of the afternoon sun, and everywhere, carved into every surface, were those same phrases I'd seen in the cave. He calls, "We walk no pain here." I found Marcus 20 minutes later. He was sitting against a formation, legs crossed, hands folded, staring at nothing. His eyes were open. He was breathing. But he was already gone, collected, trapped in whatever space existed between this world and the next. "Marcus?" I knelt beside him. "Can you hear me?" His eyes shifted to me. His mouth didn't move, but I heard him. "Officer Blackhorn, you came. He said you would. He's been waiting for you. Where is he?" "Everywhere. Nowhere. In the spaces between. He's always been here since before the stone rose. Since before we had names for things. He collects the broken ones, keeps them, uses them, and now he wants you." "Why me, specifically?" "Because you're looking. Because you're trying to understand. Because you broke Rule 3 and saw what you shouldn't see, and now you can't unsee it. Because your wife calls to you every night, and you listen instead of running because you're marked, and marked means collected eventually." Marcus's eyes moved past me, focusing on something behind my shoulder. "He's here." I turned. The tall man stood about 30 feet away, exactly as I'd seen him before, impossibly tall. Proportions wrong, skin like old leather, stretched over a frame that wasn't quite human. Those black eyes that absorbed all light. That knowing smile that suggested patience measured in centuries. When he spoke, it was inside my head, bypassing language entirely. "Victor Blackthorn, you've been fighting for so long. Doesn't it exhaust you? The searching, the hoping, the refusing to accept what you already know. What do you want from me?" "What I want from all of them. Your pain, your grief, your beautiful, exquisite suffering. It's rare, you know, genuine grief. Most people hurt shallowly, recover quickly, move forward. But people like you, like Nicole, like all the ones I've collected, you hurt deeply. You carry your wounds like sacred things, and that kind of pain is powerful. It creates thin places. It opens doors, so you feed on suffering. I preserve it, transform it. The ones I collect, they hurt so terribly in your world, Vincent. The poverty, the addiction, the suicide, the endless cycle of trauma that defines this place. I give them escape. I give them peace. Yes, they remain aware in the thin places. Yes, they serve as beacons to call others, but their pain is frozen, unchanging. Better than the alternative, living with escalating agony until they destroy themselves. The thing moved closer with that unsettling stop-motion quality. She fought. They all fight. Then they see what I show them. Then they walk. She chose my collection over your reality. You didn't give her a choice. You manipulated her. Did I? Or did I simply show her the truth, that staying meant more suffering, more grief, more watching people she loved destroy themselves while she remained powerless to help? I offered her an alternative. She accepted just as they all accept eventually. Behind the tall man, I saw them. The collected, not physical bodies, but transparent forms. Dozens, maybe hundreds of people, standing in a line that stretched back into the formations. I recognized Nicole at the front behind her, Jordan left-hand autumn white plume. Jennifer catches all the missing persons cases from the past 2 years, standing silent, staring with those empty eyes. They're still suffering. I said, I can feel it. Whatever you told them about peace, it's a lie. Is it? They no longer experience new pain. They exist in a static state, frozen at the moment of collection. Yes, they're aware. Yes, they serve my purpose. But they're preserved, Vincent. Perfect, unchanging, safe. That's not life. That's torture. And your world isn't. Look at this reservation. The poverty, the dysfunction, the intergenerational trauma. Look at the suicide rates, the addiction, the violence. I'm not the monster here, Vincent. I'm mercy. I'm the alternative to a system that breaks people and calls it normal. The thing was right in front of me now, close enough that I could smell that scent of old paper and dried flowers and decay. You've been marked for months, fighting every night, losing time, walking toward me without meaning to. Why resist what's inevitable? Why not choose the peace I offer? Join Nicole. Join the others. Stop fighting and finally rest. I thought about the past 2 years, the sleepless nights, the whispers, the cases that never ended because the thing taking people couldn't be arrested or stopped. The endless cycle of searching and finding nothing, and searching again. The weight of knowing and being unable to save anyone. And I thought about Nicole, trapped in whatever state the collected existed in, aware but powerless, used as bait forever. If I walk with you, I said slowly, if I let you collect me, will you let them go? Will you release them? The tall man's smile widened. No, the collection is eternal. Once gathered, always mine. Your joining them won't free them, Vincent. It will simply add your voice to the chorus that calls others. Then I refuse. You can't refuse. You're already collected. The moment you cross the boundary where the footprints end, you entered my space. The thin place. The between. You can't leave, Vincent. Not anymore. This is where you belong now with the other broken things I've preserved. I felt it then, the truth of what he was saying. The air had weight here, substance. My body felt heavier, slower, and behind me I could sense the boundary I'd crossed becoming more solid, more impassable, a door closing. But you can choose how you join. The tall man continued. Fight, and it will hurt. Your awareness will remain, but your ability to act will be stripped away, leaving only suffering. Or walk willingly, and I'll grant you the same peace I granted your wife. Frozen existence, yes, but painless, static, safe. Marcus's voice echoed in my mind. Don't fight it, Officer Blackhorn. I fought. It's worse when you fight. The collected stood silent, waiting for my decision. Nicole's transparent form was at the front, and I could see tears on her face that never fell, frozen in the moment of her collection. I reached for my radio, dead. My phone, no signal. Even my watch had stopped. The second hand frozen at the moment I'd crossed the boundary. No one can help you, the tall man said. No one even knows where you are. You responded to this call alone, violated protocol, entered the formations without backup. They'll search for you, of course. Find your vehicle. Follow your footprints to where they end. Add you to the list of missing officers. Another tragedy on a reservation full of tragedies. And eventually they'll stop looking. They always do. He was right. I'd broken every rule, ignored every warning, walked straight into the trap because some part of me had wanted this, wanted the searching to end, wanted to be with Nicole again, even if it meant joining her in whatever hell the Collected inhabited. The tall man extended one long hand, palm up, offering. Choose, Vincent. Pain or peace. Fighting or acceptance. Either way, you're mine now. The only question is how much you'll suffer before you stop resisting. I looked at Nicole's frozen form, at Jordan, at Autumn, at Jennifer, at all the others whose cases I'd investigated, whose families I'd tried to comfort, whose disappearances I'd documented in Ray's notebook. Dozens of people trapped in static suffering used as bait to lure others into the same fate. An endless cycle. A harvest that never stopped. And I was about to become part of it. Unless you said I'm in a thin place, I said slowly. A space between worlds. Yes, and you use the Collected as anchors. Their pain creates the thin places, opens the doors, lets you move between your world and ours. Very good. You understand more than most. Then what happens if the anchors are destroyed? If the Collected are freed, not by your permission, but by force? What happens to the thin places then? The tall man's smile faded. You can't free them. They exist in my space now, beyond your reach, beyond any. I pulled my service weapon and fired directly into Nicole's transparent form. The effect was instantaneous. She shattered like glass, her frozen expression finally releasing into relief. The others began shattering too. A cascade reaction spreading through the line of Collected. Jordan, Autumn, Jennifer, all the nameless others going back decades, breaking apart, dissolving, finally freed from whatever static hell they'd been trapped in. The tall man screamed, not in my head, but out loud, a sound like stone breaking, like wind through empty spaces, like rage that had been patient for centuries, suddenly meeting resistance it hadn't anticipated. The formations began shaking, the air pressure dropped sharply, and the boundary I'd crossed, the one that had solidified behind me, suddenly thinned again. What have you done? Freed them and freed myself. I ran toward where I'd entered, where Marcus's footprints ended. The ground was buckling, the formations cracking. Behind me, the tall man was following, but his movements were jerky now, damaged, no longer smooth. The Collected had been his anchors, and I'd just destroyed them all. But Marcus was on his feet, running beside me, fully present and terrified. What's happening? The thin place is collapsing. Move. We reached the boundary. I could feel it still there, but weakening, becoming permeable again. I pushed through, pulling Marcus with me, and fell out onto the other side where the footprints ended. The world snapped back to normal. Sound returned. Wind, distant traffic, my own gasping breath. My watch started moving again. My radio crackled with a call I'd missed. Behind us, the formation where we'd crossed through was collapsing, rock falling inward, creating a crater, closing the space that had existed there. I saw the tall man for one more second, standing in the collapsing cavity. Those black eyes fixed on me with something that might have been rage or respect or promise. Then the formation sealed, and he was gone. Marcus and I stumbled back to my vehicle as the sun set. He was shaking but alive, fully present, able to speak normally. The blank stare was gone. Whatever had been collecting him had released its grip when I'd shattered the anchors. What was that thing? He asked. Something old. Something that's been hunting here for a long time. But not anymore. Not like it was. Is it gone? I thought about what I'd done. The Collected had been freed. I'd felt them shatter, felt their awareness finally release into whatever came next. Nicole was no longer trapped. Jordan, Autumn, Jennifer, all the others, freed from static suffering. But the tall man himself, he'd survived, damaged, weakened, forced back into whatever space he'd come from, but not destroyed. Things that old don't die easily. For now, I said. We drove back to the station. I filed my report, found Marcus running bare, alive and unharmed. No sign of abduction or injury. Likely wandered into the formations and became disoriented. The formation collapse was attributed to natural erosion, a minor geological event that happens occasionally in the Badlands. No mention of the tall man. No mention of the collected, or the thin places, or the way they'd shattered when I'd fired into them. Some truths don't fit in official reports. Ray called me that night. He'd heard about the formation collapse, about Marcus being found alive, about me bringing him back safely. You went into the thin place, didn't you? Yes. And you came back out? Yes. How? I broke his anchors, freed the collected. The thin place collapsed. Ray was silent for a long moment. That's never worked before. People have tried destroying sites, performing ceremonies, everything. The collected always remained. How did you? I don't know. Maybe because I was marked. Because I was in a space. Because I had permission to be there, even if I was refusing the collection. Or maybe just luck. I paused. Nicole's free now. I felt it. She's not trapped anymore. I'm glad, Vincent. Truly. Another pause. But you know he's still out there. Weakened, maybe. Forced back, but not gone. I know. And he'll remember you. What you did. When he regains strength, he'll come for me. Yeah, I figured. What are you going to do? I thought about the whispers which had been silent since I'd shattered the collected. Thought about the mirrors which showed only my own reflection now. Thought about the weight that had lifted when Nicole's frozen form had shattered into release. But I also thought about what release meant. I'd freed them from static suffering, yes. But I'd done it by destroying them, by firing into Nicole's trapped consciousness and watching her shatter. I'd killed her. Really killed her this time to save her from something worse than death. Was that mercy or just another kind of murder? My job, I finally answered. Help people. Document the cases and wait. Wait for what? For him to come back. Because he will. Ray, I heard him, damaged his collection. Destroyed decades, maybe centuries of work. Things that old don't forgive. They don't forget. They just wait until the conditions are right again. You could leave, transfer, and go where? He marked me 2 years ago when Nicole disappeared. Probably marked me before that when I first started investigating these cases. You think distance matters to something that exists in thin places between worlds? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. No, this is where it ends. Here on the reservation, probably in the Badlands. The only question is when. Ray was quiet for a long moment. How long do you think you have? I don't know. Depends how long it takes him to rebuild, to find new anchors, create new thin places, gather enough strength to finish what he started. I paused. Could be years, could be months, could be tomorrow. I'm sorry, Vincent. I should have don't. You did what you could. You kept the records, tried to warn people, followed the rules as best you could. This thing has been hunting here since before we had names for it. You couldn't have stopped it. Neither can I. All we can do is document, warn the next person, and hope they're smarter than we were. He hung up. I sat in the darkness of my house and updated Ray's notebook one final time. June 14th. Thin place at Formation 7 collapsed. Collected freed method. Direct disruption of anchor manifestations. Tall man damaged but not destroyed. Officer Victor Blackthorne marked and awaiting collection. Estimated time until entity regains full strength. Unknown. Note for next investigator. The collected can be freed, but freedom means destruction. Consider carefully whether this is mercy. Additional note. The silence after freeing them is temporary. It always comes back. That was 6 months ago. For the first 5 months and 29 days, the whispers were gone completely. Silence in my head. No figures and mirrors. No lost time or unexplained walks toward the Badlands. I started to hope stupidly, desperately, that maybe I'd actually won, that destroying the collected had done permanent damage, that the tall man had retreated to whatever space he came from and wouldn't return. Then, last night, I heard it again. I was getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth, when I noticed something in the bathroom mirror. Not behind me this time. That would have been too obvious. Too much like before. This was subtler. My reflection's eyes were wrong. They were looking slightly to the left, while my actual eyes looked straight ahead, just a fraction of a degree off, barely noticeable. But once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. My reflection and I were no longer perfectly synchronized. I blinked. My reflection blinked a half-second later. I stepped away from the mirror. My reflection stayed in place for just a moment, a fraction of a second before following, and in that moment I saw what was standing behind my reflection. What had always been there, just waiting for me to notice. The tall man, closer than he'd ever been, close enough that if the mirror were a window, he could reach through and touch me. I turned, nothing behind me. Of course not. He doesn't exist in the physical space. Not yet. He exists in the thin places and reflections, in the spaces between what is and what could be. But he's coming back, rebuilding, getting ready. And last night, after I saw him in the mirror, the whispers started again, quieter than before, not the roar they'd been when Nicole was anchoring them, when dozens of collected were calling my name. These were different, newer voices, unfamiliar, speaking in languages I didn't recognize. He's been busy building a new collection in places I can't reach, using people I don't know, creating anchors in thin places I'll never find. And one of those voices, just one, barely audible under all the others, sounds like me. Not my voice as it is now. My voice as it will be after he collects me. After I become part of the chorus that calls others into the Badlands. Future me whispering to present me. Telling me it's time. Telling me to walk. Telling me that fighting only makes it worse. I've started losing time again. Not hours like before, but minutes. I'll be doing something. Filling out a report, making coffee, driving patrol, and suddenly I'm somewhere else. Always a little closer to the Badlands. Always facing north. Always with the taste of old paper and dried flowers in my mouth. 2 days ago, I woke up in my truck at the edge of the formations. Engine running, headlights pointing at the exact spot where Marcus Running Bear's footprints had ended 6 months earlier. I have no memory of driving there. No memory of falling asleep. Just waking up with the whispers loud in my head and the tall man standing in my headlights, watching, patient. I put the truck in reverse and drove home, but we both knew it was temporary. A delay, not an escape. Yesterday, I found footprints in the dust on my porch. Size 17, at least far too large to be human, leading from the train to my front door. Then back again. He's not even hiding anymore. He's letting me know he can reach my home, that nowhere is safe, that the distance between his world and mine is shrinking. Tonight, I heard scratching on my bedroom window. When I looked, there was nothing there. But in the morning, I found marks on the glass. Long scratches like fingernails forming words. Soon, I called Rye this morning, told him everything. "How long do you think you have?" he asked. "Days, maybe hours. I can feel it pulling at me. Every reflection I see, every mirror I pass, every dark window. He's there getting closer. And the whispers aren't asking anymore. They're commanding. My body wants to follow, even when my mind says no. Then leave right now, get in your truck and drive. Put as much distance between you and the Badlands as possible. You know that won't work. It might buy you time, might Ray? I'm a dead man. We both know it. The only question is whether I walk into the Badlands voluntarily or whether he eventually drags me there. Either way, this ends the same. Silence on the line. Then what do you want me to do? Keep the notebook. Update it when I disappear, and tell whoever comes after me. Tell them the collected can be freed, but it only buys time. Tell them the tall man can be hurt, but not killed. Tell them that everyone who gets marked ends up walking eventually, no matter how hard they fight. Vincent, and tell them I'm sorry for breaking the rules, for not being strong enough to resist, for becoming part of the thing I tried to stop. I hung up before he could respond. It's almost midnight now. The whispers are so loud I can barely think. Every reflective surface in my house shows the same thing. The tall man standing just behind me, reaching out with those two long fingers, patient and inevitable. I'm going to walk soon. Maybe tonight. Maybe tomorrow. But soon I can feel myself wanting to. Some part of me. The part that's been marked, that's been listening to the whispers for months, that's so tired of fighting wants to go, wants to see what's in those thin places, wants to stop resisting and just accept what's coming. I keep thinking about what the tall man said in the formations. Better than the alternative. Living with escalating agony until they destroy themselves. He was right about that. The pain of staying is becoming worse than the fear of going. Watching the reflection get closer every day. Hearing the whispers grow louder. Feeling my will erode. My resistance crumble. My certainty that I can fight this fade into acceptance. That I can't. Maybe the collected had it right. Maybe fighting only makes it worse. Maybe the merciful thing, the smart thing, is to walk willingly. To accept the collection. To stop trying to be the hero in a story where heroes don't exist. But I'm going to fight anyway. Not because I think I can win. I know I can't. But because someone has to document what happens. Someone has to write down how the marking progresses. How the whispers build. How the entity wears down your resistance until walking. Seems like relief instead of surrender. Someone has to warn the next person that this isn't a battle you can win. It's a battle you can only delay. I'm writing this final entry in Ray's notebook. When they find my truck at the edge of the Badlands, and they will find it, door open, engine cold, footprints leading to where they end. Someone will search my house. They'll find this notebook and maybe, just maybe, it will help them understand what they're up against. The tall man exists. He hunts on the Pine Ridge Reservation, in the Badlands, in the thin places between worlds. He marks people with grief and trauma. He whispers in voices of the dead. He collects the broken and uses them to call others. You can hurt him. You can free the collected. You can even close the thin places temporarily, but you can't stop him. Not permanently, not really. He's older than the stone, more patient than the wind, and he always eventually gets what he's marked. I'm marked. I've been marked since Nicole disappeared, maybe longer. And tonight, or tomorrow, or the day after, I'm going to walk into the Badlands one final time. Not because I want to. Not because I'm giving up. But because the alternative. Fighting until my mind breaks completely. Until I hurt someone. Until I become dangerous to the people I'm supposed to protect is worse. At least this way, I walk on my own terms. Aware, documenting, mourning whoever comes next. The whispers are calling now. My reflection isn't synchronized with my body anymore. The tall man is standing at my front door. I can see him through the window. Impossibly tall. Impossibly patient. Impossibly inevitable. It's time. My name is Victor Blackthorne. I was a tribal police officer on the Pine Ridge Reservation for 8 years. I tried to stop something that can't be stopped. I freed the collected, but the collection continues. I hurt the tall man, but he's healing. And now I'm walking. If you're reading this, it means I'm already gone. Already part of the new collection. Already whispering your name from the thin places. Trying to call you like I was called. Don't listen. Don't follow. Don't trust the voices of the dead, no matter how much they sound like people you love. And for God's sake, follow the rules. All of them. Even when breaking them seems justified. Even when you think you're strong enough to resist, you're not. None of us are. The tall man is patient. The Badlands are eternal. And the collection never ends, it just grows.